What's this knob do?
No one had to properly atone for anything back then.
Hey, what is up? Abdi here. This is episode 3 of Hammer Effin' Basics. So, what we're going to be doing today in this tutorial is we're going to be throwing down some spawn zones. We're going to get some allies and some axes in here. Then after that, we're going to be adding some lights to our area, so that way we're not just playing in the dark nocturnal. After the lights, like I said, we might add some props. I'll show you a little bit of that, so that way you can kind of get an idea for your maps there and get some stuff flowing on. We're going to throw in a doorway. Possibly do a little bit of work on a skybox today. I'll explain some of that, what a skybox is exactly. And, yeah, I guess we will go from there. So as far as the tools that we're going to be focusing on today, the tools that we're going to be using are our select tool, our camera tool, our entity tool, the entity, the block tool, and... yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, we're probably going to get into the clipping tool today, because I said we were going to do that in the last episode. I didn't do that. I'm a liar. I'm so sorry. We'll do that now. So, now that we've got this generic room set up, we saved it. We've got mine's called tutorial map episodic. You can call yours whatever you want. Ritz, bits, and crackers. I really don't care. As long as we get, something. That one actually kind of made me laugh after I chuckled, or said it. After I chuckled, I laughed. Anyway, so now that we've got our room set up here, we're going to select the entity tool, and we're going to get going with this bad boy. What I like to do, you can do it in 3-dimensional mode too. If you do it in the camera mode, all you have to do is select your entity tool and place it anywhere in the 3D mode, and it's going to put it right where you click. After I put it in the 3D mode, I'll go into the 2-dimensional mode. I will hit my left bracket and make sure that my grid is on 16. Make sure that whenever you have a spawn zone, or like a player start, a player axes, player allies, which I'll get into, whenever you have one of those, you want to make sure that they are not touching the ground, that they are not inside of an object, that there is no objects inside of them, that there are no entities inside of them. You pretty much want to make it to where there's not a damn thing touching them, no matter what. No ifs, ands, or buts. You cannot have it touching the ground. That's why I put mine 16 units above the ground. You can put it 8 units above the ground. I think you can put it 4 units above the ground. I'm not sure. I don't like doing that. I do 16. 16 is a good number. But as you'll notice, after you pull them up, if you see in these 2-dimensional views, he has a name. It says Info Player Allies. So if we hit Shift S or use our select tool and double click this guy in 3-dimensional mode, you'll notice this little drop down thing comes up. So it says Object Properties Info Player Allies. Now what this is if you hit this little drop down area, you'll see a whole bunch of shit. These are everything that we can do ever. We got lights, light spots, autosave, logic, case, compare, relay, math combines, math remap. There's a lot of objects and a lot of things that we can do. I'm not going to get into all this shit. I'm sorry. I'm not definitely not going to get into all of it. However, in later episodes, yeah, we'll go over some of them. Not all of them, but we'll go over some of them, at least the ones that I know. However, to start this, we're going to have an allies, info player allies. So that's the initial entity that starts out here. Then I'll do the shift, left click, drag them. So that way I make a copy. I'll double click the second copy. I'll hit that drop down menu and click info player axes. So now we technically have an allies and an axes set up. So we can have one of each guy on each team. Now you'll notice inside of these properties areas, there's a name, start disabled, pitch, yaw, roll. The pitch, yaw, roll is just literally the direction that this cat's going to face. So if I change this, he's going to face a direction, or at least spawn in facing that direction initially. I'm going to leave these all at 0 though. The only one that I recommend ever changing is this second one. The other ones will throw off a lot of things. They will mess up a lot of hitboxes, and I do not recommend throwing any different numbers into those separate zeros. Just the middle zero. And you can do that by just spinning around that black, or that white, I don't know what to call it, that white bar in the black circle that I had up on the object property windows. Right here. Spin that around, you can spin your guy around. He points the direction that thing is pointing. However, once we've got that set up, you got your dudes. Now, in most games, you're going to have a minimum of 8 players on either side for Dave defeat source. So that is a minimum of 8 allies and a minimum of 8 axes for a map to work on a public server. Now this, I don't know if it's still true nowadays. It was true about 8 years ago, but I have seen that Day of Defeat has not changed much. So, make sure you have a minimum of 8 players on either side. Obviously, servers can handle 32 players maximum, so you're going to want to have at least 16 players on either side if you're hoping to get this onto a bigger server, but it is not necessary for you to have 16 players on either side for this to work properly. Now, for safe measures, I usually copy the spawn zone, or one of the spawn guys, and just make one info player start. Now, what the info player start is that's one that's typically for Half-Life 2, Gary's mod. I don't think Counter-Strike or Counter-Strike Source uses it. They use terrorists and counter-terrorists. But it's where your spawn zone would be if you were playing Half-Life 2 or Gary's mod. I add this as a just-in-case, like, precautionary measure. There's, just in case. Shouldn't be an issue as to why you shouldn't have this in your level. It's not going to deteriorate anything or lower the frame rate on anything at all whatsoever. Alright, now that we've got one of those, we can place another entity in the level. Double click that entity. We'll go into the class, and this is where some typing comes in, so you got to kind of know what you're looking for. I'll go ahead and put in the description a list of some of the entities that Valve has available for Day of Defeat Source. But for right now, we're just going to type in light. As you'll notice, a bunch of things come up for light. For this specific purpose, since we are inside of a room, we will just click the first one that says light. Now, while you're inside of light, this one has a hell of a lot more properties than the other one did, obviously. So for name, you can change the name of the light. If you're going to have a button attached to the light, you need to have a name on the light, no matter what. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We will go over outputs, inputs, flags, all that other stuff in an additional tutorial later on, because those are going to be extremely useful. I think I might actually just do that next tutorial because flags and outputs and inputs. No. I don't know. Take a look at one of the next tutorials. It's going to be on there. However, for the next thing on here, we have brightness. Now, for the brightness, right here, the numbers, they look like shit. Don't worry about those numbers for right now. You can double-click the brightness. You can change this. So let's say we want this to illuminate red. Obviously, you can see that the first number is red. Now, if you click this again, we'll go to green. The second number is green, and the last number is going to be blue. Ba-bam. So, I like to keep, obviously, whatever number and color you want to have your room at. I'll just keep them all at 255. The last number is relatively important. That's going to be your brightness. So, default, it's going to be at 200. For me, in this room, since it's so fucking small, I'm going to do 100, because the lights are relatively bright when you have them out like that. Let's see. I don't know why it's... Okay. Anyway, apparently white is not the default color to that. Brightness HDR, these are a little bit different. These ones have negative, and 1. I would recommend not changing these whatsoever. Don't pick a color. Don't change them. Same with the brightness scale. I mean, you can change your brightness scale. This is going to be how bad the bloom is on your HDR settings. You'll notice what I'm talking about once I get into the HDR compiling. However... don't change this too much. If you are going to change it, I would recommend changing it down and not up. It works on a scale, I believe, from 0.01 all the way up to whatever the hell it goes up to. I haven't tried really messing with it. I've only taken it down to 0.5. So The appearance, obviously you can go in here and change this. We have a fluorescent flicker, strong slow pulse, fade back or no black, gentle post, flicker, candle. There's a lot of things. For me, I'm just going to keep mine on normal. That's all I want. Just want a normal face here. We've got custom appearance. Now this one, I haven't really messed with custom appearance too much. You can check out some stuff on Valve. I haven't looked at it because I haven't really needed to be honest with you. There's no reason for me to. Linear, haven't really messed with that. Haven't messed with constant. Haven't messed with quadratic. I haven't really messed with anything else other than entity to point at. And that's just in this specific case, you don't really need it because this light generates light in a spherical matter, so it doesn't necessarily need an entity to point at. However, if you had a light spotlight, like it says right here, it would definitely matter. So let's say you had something shining like a bike, and you wanted the bike to be shown off. The light spotlight can show off the bike. I'll do a whole fucking video on that thing too. I think I should just do a video on each individual entity so that way I can specifically explain it. But for right now, we're just building the map, basic shit. Doing basic stuff. Maximum distance. So this is the maximum distance that the light is allowed to cast in inches. 0 is default, so I'm not sure how many inches in is a default number. But if you change this, you can see in-game. Obviously, you're going to have to render this in-game a couple of times to figure out how far the inches are away from, etc., etc., etc. Now, you can also change the grid mode to show inches instead of the units that it does show. However, I will get into that later on because it's not very useful in my opinion. But now that we've got the light, we're going to go ahead and just select apply. Sorry, I went into a huge fucking tangent there. We'll select apply, drag the light right into the middle of the room here by using our shift select tool. And like I said, we don't want any lights or any entities inside of these players, so I'm going to move the players to the back corner of the room here. And voila. Ba-bam! We got us a room, and we have our Axes team, and we have our Allies team set up. Now, with this being said, if I were to render this in-game, this is going to show exactly what this map looks like, so I will do that. Then we're going to cut the tutorial and go straight into the next tutorial here. Stick with Prime. So, to render it, you're going to go up here, go to File, Save, obviously. You always want to save it before you render it. We're going to go to Run Map. The hotkey to that is F9. For right now, for these purposes, we're just going to click Normal, Normal, Normal. I usually don't like changing those because I like to see what the full compile looks like no matter how long it takes. Depending on how much stuff you have in your level, the compile is going to take a hell of a long time. This compile should be quick as I mean, it should just be quick. So after you hit F9, we'll just leave all this default and just click OK. You'll see this command board come up. Since it's such a small map, it should run it relatively fast, and it should jump right into Day of Defeat source here. Which I'm sorry if it's loud. Yeah, it might be a little loud here. So I just hit the space bar a couple of times. It's going to load the map. It'll load the files. You're going to hit OK. And I'm just going to choose part of the team. And bam, there's the top room, and here we are. So now we're in game. Obviously, this is really fucking laggy on the recording for some reason, but I think it's just because I have so many processes open. This is our first room. This is the first compile that we've done on this map here. Go ahead and stay tuned for the next variation of this, where we're going to add some doors. We'll possibly add a window and an outside area here. And then from there, we're going to go on to keep finishing this tutorial map, guys. So thank you very much for sticking through with us on episode 3 of Hammer the Effin' Basics. Go ahead and stick through for episode 4. This has been Opti. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, like. We don't want to cry anymore at night. That's our biggest issue right now, is that we cry so much at night because nobody likes us. It's okay, though. Give us a shout out. Prime out.